Hallelujah. Warm sunshine today with a high of 92, then this evening showers and thunderstorms expected with an overnight low of 59. Spend your summer with some of the hottest musical acts around at Crooner's Supper Club in Fridley. Crooner's is located just north of I-694 off Highway 65 and Moore Lake Drive. Visit croonersmn.com to view their schedules and food menus.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Broadcasting live at 2 p.m. from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing in the mornings at 5 a.m. on WCPTA 20, Chicago's progressive talk where facts matter. Welcome to the Gailey Show. I'm your host, John Parker, professionally gay for pay since 2014?
At least. At least that long.
Jim Pounds, executive producer, with me here in the studio.
Hello, everyone.
Patrick. Hey, Patrick in the control room. How was your weekend?
It was pretty exciting, but glad to be back here with you guys today.
Exciting? What was exciting?
Well, Saturday was a pretty fun day here at the station. I'll leave it at that, but it was it's always a fun day at the station. So
yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, it's definitely it was a fun weekend, though.
Okay.
I had a good
All right.
time.
Not prying. Glad I did as well. I think ultimately when it was nice out, I think here in this, it was still like cold at some parts, and then it was starting to warm up. And finally today, it's on Monday, it's finally starting to warm up here and get into the 80s, which I appreciate. But anyhow, for those listening in Minneapolis, our call-in number 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. What is on the show today? Lori Dawkins' upcoming Fireside Theater concert at Chanhassen at Dinner Theater's Shout, Sisters Shout is June 8th. Lori joins us in the second half of the hour to chat all about it. But up first, I want to take some time on this segment today. It's going to be another segment of Is It Left-Wing Extremism? So the progressives are often painted as extreme, that their policies are too far to the left. They are the left-wing extremists, just like MAGA are the right-wing extremists. But I have wanted to know, is that true? Because I'm actually a dual citizen of France and the US. And so much of what the progressives in this country would suggest here is actually kind of centrist in France. And then as I was sort of looking around the world, I'm like, these things that progressives are saying here in the States, they're actually kind of centrist in all of these other countries. And so thus far this year, I've dove in and my own research, and then here with Jim, we've been talking about it on the air. First, we looked at taxes and then universal health care. And we found out in those segments that under a Republican president, Eisenhower, we had a much higher, radically higher tax rates. We had a 91% marginal tax rate under a Republican president. And I believe the last time that we had a balanced budget without a deficit was under Eisenhower.
Make America great again.
Right. We're going to go back to the 50s. Let's take the tax rate from the 50s. Our marginal tax rate today is 37% compared to the 91%
right.
Back there.
Right.
I also found out during that Is It Left-Wing Extremism that if you took the top 10 billionaires in the world, most, I think 8 of whom live in the United States, and you taxed them overnight 99% of their income, they would still be billionaires at the end of it.
Because of previous accumulation, you mean?
Raising taxes is actually not a far left extreme idea.
No.
Even if you went up to 91%, there is a precedent in this country under a conservative government.
Wouldn't you agree it has to do with how you spend the money, not just that you tax? I don't want to get into that, but
no, that's not what we're getting into. We're talking about,
but isn't that valid?
If we if we have taxes, and raise taxes, which is what the progressives say that they want to do, is that left-wing extremism? And as we discovered in that segment, no, it wasn't.
Right.
Then we looked at universal health care. This is the big boogeyman of, the entire United States, saying that, the progressives are super far left extremists because they want to have universal health care. Well, as we dug around, found out that Hungary, MAGA's favorite European country, a far-right country that has banned all pride events. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. They have universal health care. And despite being in office for years, I mean years, they've had plenty of opportunity to do this. The far-right political party of Viktor Orban hasn't dismantled their universal healthcare system. No, they've been investing more money in it. Okay, so universal healthcare, not far left wing extremism. Today, we are going to look at amnesty for undocumented immigrants, also known as Pathway to Citizenship. And why are we talking about this on The Gailey Show? Well, taxes, healthcare, and immigration affect the queer community significantly, but we tend to only focus on it from an LGBTQ perspective. So, like when we talk about taxes, we're talking about that in relation to like gay marriage. When we talk about healthcare, and I've been this person talking about, we advocate for LGBTQ healthcare services being included in like Medicaid, Medicare, a company's health insurance programs, right? That's the part that we focus on. When we talk about immigration, typically when you see a policy coming out of the queer community, that is around asylum, right? So queer folks who are living in countries where they are being attacked, persecuted, or killed by their governments, and we want to open our doors to give them asylum here in the United States, right? But that's sort of the extent of how we talk about policy, immigration policy within the queer community. So we don't really talk about these from the larger US perspective. And I think that we need to, because of our voting power. So 86% of the queer community voted for Harris Walz last fall. And last year, the Human Rights Campaign Foundation, so they're like our largest advocacy organization in the United States, them and the National LGBTQ Task Force, HRC Foundation found that over 95% of LGBTQ plus adults were registered to vote. And that was consistent across all age groups. So like your 18 to 24-year-olds, your 25 to 34-year-olds, et cetera, right? 95%. There has been really interesting data that in the 2020 election, just looking at the state of Georgia, 53% of non-LGBTQ voters voted in Georgia for Trump. 88% of queer voters went for Biden, and they were considered one of the reasons why that state flipped blue. And as LGBTQ populations are growing in Texas and Ohio are the two main states that they're looking at right now, that those states are starting to turn or be considered purplish because of the LGBTQ voting bloc. So we are joining the national conversation in terms of voting. Are we joining the national conversation as it relates to policy, which is why I've been wanting to talk about, is it left-wing extremism? Because Democrats, as evidenced last year, queer people, as evidenced last year in the election, are overwhelmingly voting for the Democratic Party and for progressives. So, warning, we're going to start off here very briefly about the misinformation about undocumented immigrants, and it's broadly on 3 points. One, an invasion happening, there's an undocumented immigration invasion. Number two, that undocumented immigrants cause crime because many are being released from prisons and coming to the US to murder, rape, and pillage the United States. And number three, undocumented workers are taking things from you, usually jobs or higher wages, but at the same time, they're also freeloading and not working and getting all sorts of free things like healthcare, right? That's the misinformation around undocumented immigrants in this country. And the first question isn't, how do we know if that's true or not, actually? The first question, I think, is, do we care to know the facts about this? And so right now you're at work or you're in your car on your commute, and we've got so much to do, right? And I guess my question is, do we even want to know the facts? Because I think what gets in the way of getting into the facts of the issue is the idea of fairness. I think there is an idea in America that undocumented immigration goes against our sense of fairness, air quotes. If someone does something wrong, why should they get rewarded? So the facts really don't matter. They did something wrong. They entered the country, without papers. End of story. The end. And I think from there, it then becomes easy to justify the viewpoint that, to justify that viewpoint of they did something wrong, this is against the rules, the end, you can then begin to believe, oh, well, they are invading. And maybe it's not, literally, but I'm willing to believe that they are invading metaphorically. It's easy to justify the viewpoint that they're taking our jobs. Easy to justify the viewpoint that they're getting things for free. And so we turn to a very easy solution, right? Deportation. I would argue that deportation isn't the fair solution. And the majority of Americans don't want to have deportation, and they are particularly against what the Trump administration is doing right now as it relates to deportation. But the Democrats don't have a real immigration policy. In some states, they want to give folks driver's licenses. In some states, they want to give them health care. They generally advocate for, expanding visas. They may want some pathway to citizenship, but not all of them. And so they want to have this sort of weird patchwork of policies without fundamentally dealing with the 11 million undocumented immigrants in the country. I then wanted to unpack this idea of, well, why do we even have undocumented immigration? And the most compelling argument that I found didn't come from progressives. It came from the Cato Institute. They are not progressive. They're not liberal. They claim to be nonpartisan, but if you go through a lot of their research, it mainly aligns with conservatives and libertarians. And what they found in a report from last year, the conclusion is that the strength or weakness of the U.S. labor market explains the flow of undocumented immigration across the southern border. That the economic gains from working in the United States, quoting from this report, the economic gains from working in the United States mostly explains why immigrants want to come here in the first place. The state of the U.S. economy and labor market should be the first explanation that people consider when explaining changes in the flow of undocumented immigration. That when we have high periods of jobs and there are more jobs than there are people, we see a spike in undocumented workers. I thought that was fascinating. The problem is that there is no, I know we're gonna briefly get into this, there is no line to get into to fill the jobs. Green cards are really only available for getting married, or you're married and you're having a child, right? You can sponsor a foreign-born family member to come to the country, but that takes forever to get done, and there's a limitation on them. There is asylum, but if you are, hang on, we're going to jump into a break here. Wow, we're already coming up on the break.
Well, that's why I was giving you that sign so gently. We are going to take a quick break and try to follow John. Think about what he said during the commercial break, and then we're going to come back and try to unpack it. This is AM 950. The Gailey Show. We'll be right back.
Hastings, get ready to celebrate love and community. Hastings Pride returns at 11 a.m. Friday, June 14th at Levy Park, and everyone's invited. Enjoy live music, drag performances, food trucks, local vendors, and family activities, all by the river in beautiful downtown Hastings. Let's come together to uplift every color of the rainbow. Hastings Pride on June 14th at Levy Park. All are welcome, all belong. Details at ideaorganization.org or on Facebook and Instagram.
Hey, it's Tom. Even though I don't live in Minnesota, I've spent enough time there to know how quickly the weather can change. One day it's sunny and the next you're preparing for severe weather. That's where solar plus battery storage from All Energy Solar comes in. With this power-saving combination, you'll gain energy independence and stay connected through blackouts, emergencies, or extreme weather. Solar plus battery storage is perfect for rural areas where power outages are more common, or for anyone tired of worrying about rolling blackouts. And with plenty of incentives still available, All Energy Solar will work with you to make sure you get the most savings possible. For over 15 years, All Energy Solar has been a trusted partner in helping Minnesotans move to affordable, renewable energy. They offer the best battery technology and their own licensed electricians and contractors to ensure top quality installation. So stop paying the utility company and start generating and saving your own power. Get a free consultation today at allenergysolar.com.
Are your remote workers putting your company at risk? Not sure what steps to take to secure your data? Hi, Mark Sommerfeld from Rymark. The Rymark team is guiding our clients through these difficult times. In fact, demand has been so high, we created an easy-to-follow guide with the 5 steps to securely work from home. It's yours free. Download our 5 steps to securely work from home now at rymarkit.com or call 651-328-8900 for a no-cost how-to discussion.
Hey, it's Patrick for Zero Res. June is here, which means you might be having a graduation party at your house soon. Summer also means sleepovers. Your kids are going to be at the playground, at the water park, at the beach. There's going to be a lot of mess coming into the house over the summer, and you need to call my cleaning heroes at Zero Res to make sure your home is in order for the summer. And since June is here, it's time to take advantage of Zero Res's best deal of the summer. Zero Res can take care of any surface in your home or business, including carpet, tile, hardwood, rugs, upholstery, and air ducts. This month, take 20% off all services when you call my friends at Zero Res 9520 Res or go to ZeroResMinnesota.com. Just tell them you want the AM 950 special. Their prompt, courteous team will come out and take care of you. Again, that's 20% off all services this month. Go to ZeroResMinnesota.com or call 9520 Res and ask for the AM 950 special. Zero Res, backward or forward, spells the same.
Welcome back to the Gailey Show. I'm your host, John Parker. In studio with me is Jim Pounds, doing a rather lengthy segment on is it left-wing extremism, where we're looking at amnesty for undocumented workers, pathway to citizenship for undocumented workers. And before the break, getting into research from the Cato Institute, so conservative libertarians, not progressives and liberals, stating that what drives undocumented immigration is the strength of the U.S. economy. That when you look at the data shows that when there are more jobs and there are workers, we get a huge influx of undocumented workers. So when you look at the Biden administration and we had all of that growth coming back from COVID and we had the Biden economy, then you saw a huge number, because it's actually really hard to legally immigrate into the United States. Green cards, you have to be married. There are asylum. Asylum is ridiculously hard. The burden of proof to prove that you are being politically attacked is off the charts, and only about 70 to 80,000 folks can get that in a given year that make it through the entire process. There is a work visa that is typically reserved for your multinational, executives, your British actors coming to take all our movie roles. I mean, that is a very small percentage of folks that use the a immigration category for work sponsorship. The last two are H-2A seasonal agricultural visas and an H-2B visa. The H-2B visa capped 66,000. Why does that matter? There's 11 million undocumented workers in the country right now. The H-2A visa, nobody wants to use it, because to qualify for an H-2A visa, you have to provide housing as well as transportation to and from the worker's home country, to and from the work site. You have to provide 3 meals a day. You have to provide a wage that is set by the government that is higher than the minimum wage. So, for example, in Washington State, that's $18 an hour. Farmers don't want to use that program, so they bypass it. They just hire undocumented workers, right? So we have jobs. We have more jobs that we can fill, and there are more jobs that are available through the quote-unquote legal system, which means there's no line to get into to get these particular visas.
But there's also a real distinction between the kinds of jobs that most undocumented workers fill. These are jobs that would, back-breaking farm work and slaughterhouse jobs.
But see, again, if we look at the Cato Institute, what they're saying is that we are not hiring undocumented folks that we would be hiring American citizens. We are actually, there are more jobs than there are people, citizen or otherwise. And that's the Cato Institute. That's not me. Anyhow, I want to get into some other things here. Crime is another thing that we constantly hear about. Actually, lots and lots of studies. I'm just going to look at one that I'm going to talk about. It was a study from the University of Wisconsin and Purdue University studying violent crime from 1990 to 2014. and they found that the number actually went down of violent crime. The increases in the immigrant population illegally, quote unquote, are associated with the significant decrease in violence. So looking at those two areas of where violent crime was happening and where were undocumented immigrants, where undocumented immigrants were, violent crime went down. There's lots of other studies showing that undocumented immigration actually has a positive effect, reducing crime in areas than it does raising crime. Another thing, undocumented workers pay taxes. Now you hear there's a disinformation point of how can you pay taxes if you don't have a social security number? Because there's a tax identification number, a taxpayer identification number that anyone can get with the IRS. You apply for it, you get it, you pay taxes. And undocumented workers paid $220 million in taxes to the state of Minnesota in 2022, $1 billion in taxes to the state of Illinois in 2022. $97 billion overall in 2022 is the amount of taxes they pay to the federal and state governments. So when we're talking about amnesty, though, that is not left-wing extremism, as it turns out. President Reagan, Mr. Father of modern conservatism, and the 1986 law known as the Immigration Reform and Control Act provided amnesty, citizenship to 3 million undocumented workers in the 1980s. You had to be living continually in the U.S. since January of 82, or you had to have completed 90 days of agricultural work, you had to pay a fee, and you couldn't have a criminal record.
I mean, isn't the irony that it's capitalists that love undocumented workers because they can pay so much less, no benefits, no job security? You know, they make it a very tenuous existence for people that are just trying to feed their family or feed themselves, and they get all the benefit and they can still charge top dollar for whatever it is. And so their profit margin, their cost of labor is lower, their profit margin is higher. So it is capitalists that are exploiting undocumented workers. And that's why when you saw this start to happen, everybody started to complain about it. Well, you can't take our undocumented workers because how else are we going to get the food in out of the field? You know, they're not paying an American citizen $25 an hour to pick onions.
But that's one of the arguments for amnesty, is that once you provide citizenship, then the wages have to go up.
Right. Which I agree with. If people are going to come here, they should be paid a reasonable wage and become citizens.
They also found that once they did amnesty, Reagan's amnesty program, the undocumented immigration actually went down, didn't go up, which was really fascinating. Where the fault was with the bill ultimately was they were trying to say, well, we'll grant amnesty to 3 million undocumented workers, but then we're going to clamp down and have more border security. And we're going to stop businesses from hiring undocumented immigrants moving forward. They didn't do that part of the bill. They didn't do it, which was part of the problem with the legacy of the Immigration Reform and Control Act. But when we're looking at how we're going to move forward, you cannot deport 11 million people. The majority of Americans do not want to deport 11 million people. The majority of Americans say the people that we want to deport are folks who have committed violent crime.
Right.
Okay. But we have to get on board with the idea that since we can't deport 11 million people, that how we're going to solve this is that you need to change how you can come and work in the country, because it's way too hard to do that. So you're actually creating incentive for folks to come over because you have more jobs than you can fill. And we have to stop and dispense with this idea that pathway to citizenship and amnesty are left-wing extremism because President Reagan did it.
Well, there's a whole bunch of Republicans that have failed miserably at trying to deal with immigration.
Yeah, I don't want to talk to MAGA. That's the thing, though. I don't want to talk to MAGA. We are talking to the queer and allied community here. So we're talking to Democrats, we're talking to independents, and we're talking to progressives. And they're the ones that need to stop thinking about these ideas of higher taxes, universal health care, and now amnesty as these far left extremist ideas when we see conservative governments and presidents having done it before. That's the segment for today.
We appreciate that, John. Thank you. Everyone's now pull their car over to the side of the road to consider what it is you said, because it's a lot. You were talking about a lot of great concepts. But we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have some fun with Lori Dawkins. Stay where you are. This is The Gailey Show.
Hello, Minnesota. This is Tom Hartman, and you can catch me every weekday from 11 to 2 right here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's smart radio for smart people.
Hey, it's Mitch, owner of Junkman.
Hi, Lori.
Hi.
Hi. So
Good to see
we're it's a commercial break right now on the radio, but we are still live on our YouTube live stream. So anything you say right now can be heard there. We
Thank
just
you.
wanted to say hello. We wanted to do a mic check to make sure everything's good there. I'm John, by the way. I think you know
Yes.
Jim, right? Do you know Jim?
Jim,
Well, we
yeah.
don't know each other. I don't know that we've met before.
True. We
Well,
have
it's great
not, and we do know of each other. Yes. Excellent.
Well, it is great to meet you. You should be hearing in the in your when we'll switch back to the feed, so you know that when we come back, I will put in the chat. Do you see on the chat there on the right side of your screen?
Got it. Yep.
I'll put time cues in there, like we're a minute out, we're 30 seconds out, so you know how close we are to the segment.
Great. Perfect. Hey, thanks. And thanks for having me on today. It's very fun.
Absolutely. Yes,
And
we're
I'm
very
a
excited to talk with you.
I'm a huge fan of KTNF and your program and really all the programming. And that was a great segment you guys just did. So I caught the end of it.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
very happy to have you. All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
888-995-HOPE or visit makinghomeaffordable.gov.
Good night, Mama.
This is why. Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
Hey, look at that girl over there.
What are you doing, bro? That's not cool.
But she's looking good. I just wanted to let her know.
Yeah, man, but whistling like that ain't a compliment. It's sexual harassment.
Dang, I didn't even touch her.
Sexual harassment don't just mean feeling someone up. Catcalling, whistling, making comments, all that stuff counts too.
Lighten up. I didn't hurt anybody.
Just because you don't think you hurt anybody doesn't mean that she feels the same way. When women don't feel safe walking down the street, we don't have a safe community.
Why are you getting all high and mighty? I've seen you catcall girls before too.
You're right, I did do that, but we all make mistakes and we learn. My uncle finally told me that when we do stuff like that to women, it's disrespectful, and that's not how women in a community should be treated.
Well, then what am I supposed to do if someone's looking good?
Not every thought that goes through your head needs to get said out loud, bro.
Fine, I hear you. Can't guarantee I won't slip up in the future, though.
That's all right, I got you. If I ever mess up, you can call me out too.
Nah, don't worry. I never miss an opportunity to call you out.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Warm sunshine today with a high of 92, then this evening showers and thunderstorms expected with an overnight low of 59. Spend your summer with some of the hottest musical acts around at Crooner's Supper Club in Fridley. Crooner's is located just north of I-694 off Highway 65 and Moore Lake Drive. Visit croonersmn.com to view their schedules and food menus. This is AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Broadcasting live in the 2 p.m. hour from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing in the mornings at 5 a.m. on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Welcome back to the Gailey Show. It's just past the bottom of the hour. I'm your host, John Parker. In studio with me is Jim Pounds, my executive producer. The Fireside Theater concert at Chanhassen Dinner Theater's Shout Sister Shout is coming up here on June 8th. It is performed by and curated by Lori Dawkins. Lori, oh my gosh, there is such a bio here. Over the past 4 decades, Lori has performed at every major venue in the Twin Cities, from the Dakota to the Guthrie to the Ordway. A sought-after accompanist, she is also a successful concert producer, educator, vocal coach, arranger, and vocalist. I apologize, Lori, that is like literally only 2 sentences of a much longer biography, but I'm so grateful and excited to welcome you to the Gailey Show. Oh, I think you're on mute. Laura, I think you're on mute.
You know, I haven't done that in about 2.5 years. So it had to be today because I was so disciplined during COVID. Everybody was screaming, "You're on mute." Yeah. Well, reading that list of things I've done, I just said, I think I need a nap because I guess I've been busy. So, but it's great. You know, my phone keeps ringing and I keep working with new singers and having some new ideas. So it's what a great life. I've had 10 great lifetimes, I usually say. So
I remember when I moved here in 1983 and Lori Dokken was an institution then. You know, I just can't
yeah.
believe it. You've been consistently at the top and highly regarded for decades. It's amazing.
Well, thanks, my friend. You know what? I have a lot of friends talking about retirement these days, and I just kind of giggle because, and people say, well, you get to do what you love. And it's really beyond that because it's kind of me. And sometimes music is the vehicle, and sometimes I might say something that's inspiring during a concert. And so I love it when you get together in a room with folks and it just the magic happens. And I try to create things where when people leave, they feel like they can breathe a little easier and kind of visit a lot of topics too that are a little more poignant in our universe these days and gently suggest a different way of thinking about it. And so, yeah, lucky me, I'm very grateful every day.
Well, lucky us, June 8th, Chanhassen Dinner Theater, Shout Sister Shout. Tell us more.
It's a cool show. And I know my friend Chris from the theater said, maybe send him some bullet points. And I went, oh my God, where do I stop? Because it's really different. But I've done some tribute shows, but more in categorically kind of designed things like disco, or I have a great show called Women on the Moon. It's the great female vocalists of the 60s. When you think about it, before that, there were a couple women vocalists that were really well known, but it exploded in the 60s in every style, from, Cher to Nancy Sinatra to Janis Joplin and Grace Slick and Nina Simone, Joni Mitchell. That's a really cool show. So I try to find concepts that highlight more of a theme or an idea. And Shout Sister Shout came about, I believe it was 2016. The History Theater had a season that was called the Her Story Theater. So they wanted to focus on women, and they asked me to put together a concert event. And I thought, I try to think of pieces that are missing. And I don't always do women's shows. But when I started focusing more on women artists, I noticed that, like, you'll go see a band and there might be one female singer or no female singers. And I thought, wow, let's kind of highlight this. And then I got into looking at history and what's been happening. And so for the Her Story Theater season, I came up with Shout Sister Shout, and it spans 100 years of composers, artists, and writers. And I brought in the spoken word and writing concept because there's so many friends that I have in that category where there are so few stages for them to really do their art. So I started with Sister Rosetta, who inspired Elvis, and we go all the way through to Brandi Carlile, Lady Gaga, Alicia Keys.
Wow.
That show was cool. I had 8 women singers in a band, and we had visuals for for the writer, we'd have their name and photo, and then for the artist who performed the song, that would be on the back screen. And Chanhassen, I've been fortunate to do a few shows there every year for a few years. And last year, they're like, you got something different? And I thought, because it's good to keep revolving. And I try not to repeat too much. Right. So I thought, well, Shout Sister Shout would be cool. And they bought it. And about a month prior to the show, I was sitting, and it was in January, and I went, this show can really be better and smarter and broader. So I spent about 100 hours, and I redid the whole script. Wow. And I included more writers and more quotations, like Minnie Pearl has a great thing in there that she said, and Dolly Parton, as well as like Amanda Gorman and Maya Angelou and Winona LaDuke. And I just kind of blew it apart in different singers. And it's great. Like, a few times in my life, I've had that feeling when you finish something and you can see the photo in your head. And I remember turning the page when I finished my notes, and I went, that is good. Because I just went, I thought we've gone around the whole kind of spectrum musically, and with the words that are being said and the styles and the decades. And Yeah, it was painful as a Scandinavian, but I sat there for 10 minutes and just felt really proud. You know,
That's rare
it's really
earth.
cool.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
wow. Yeah, see, I'm beaming just reflecting on that. One of
So
like 3 months.
tell us about the
3
fireside. I mean, I've been in the fireside, and sometimes
Yeah.
I get them mixed up. How many seats? How intimate is that space?
You know, it's really fun. You can just feel history in there. It's been around for many decades now. I think it's about 230, 40-ish seats. It's
Mhm.
kind of a straight on, nice incline. There's not a bad seat in the house. The sound is really incredible in there. They have great sound engineers.
Mhm.
Yeah, the stage, with the way it's designed, you have the flat front. Then there are like 3 steps. You can put some of the band on the back. It's not really big, but
Right.
you can have 12 people up there pretty comfortably.
And is
The
that
lighting.
how many you have in the cast between the musicians and the singers?
No, this show is 9 people. I
9.
have 5 singers, then myself, and then bass and drums, and then Eden Bodner is an actress and voiceover talent in town, and she does the spoken word. So it's pretty fun. We put her on a headset, so you never know where she's going to show up to deliver something.
That
Yeah.
sounds magnificent. You'd said somewhere, or I'd read somewhere, that it's a bit of a theatrical event. If you're thinking, oh, it's just a concert. No, it's more.
No.
It's
And, you know, in writing my points for you guys, I thought of the word hybrid. That's the greatest way to describe it. Um, so pretty much with everything else I do, a few songs in, we start talking with the audience.
Mhm.
And in this show, we really don't until the last song when we involve them. So with the spoken word ahead of time, and then a song that follows that theme, and then the visuals, it is theatrical,
Mhm.
but musically it's like all over the place. So it's a great cornucopia of concert sounds and songs and visuals. So yeah, it's really a hybrid. It's not a tribute show, but it is to
Mhm.
the women in all these categories and what differences they've made in people's thought and people's emotions and yeah, their hearts.
I want to hear more about that because I feel like you could have made like a 6-hour Angels in America thing.
Well, oh, what a great idea! I'm gonna get to work next winter. That's what I'm gonna do.
Part 1, part 2.
Yeah.
But how did you decide? Like, okay, here are the folks that I want to include in this one. Like, what like, take me through that process of who made the cut, essentially.
Well, I think it's a combination. I'm really grateful. I started working with like a women's group, and they were called the Girls in like 2000, 1999. It was Erin Schwab and Judy Vinar and Debbie Duncan, and then myself. I went, ooh, this is cool. And then when I got into like the 2010s up to 2016, the amount of vocalists that I was thinking about got broader. So I started pulling all those folks I wish had a chance to work with. You know, from Joyanne Parker to Mary Jane Aum to Sharma Michelle, Ginger Commodore. So there's really about 24 different artists that now and again I pull in as puzzle pieces. So that was one of the aspects, thinking about the voices, kind of their comfort styles that they usually do, textures. So that was over here. And then I thought about topics. And I kind of pulled through a basic core group that I thought these are really important. And then I started just ingesting great quotations and great poems. And I'd think of a subject and I'd type it in and I'd find like, ooh, that's great. Like we do, I don't want to spoil too many things in the show, but we do Born This Way towards the end, Lady Gaga. And so the words before that is actually a quote from Lady Gaga. And she says, you know, being gay is like glitter. It never goes away. So it's true. And so the show, it's I'm really proud of it. And it feels great to do it. And also give folks opportunities to think about some serious things. If you want to go from the glitter and be gay to the other side of the planet, Joni Mitchell wrote a song called Magdalene Laundries. when she heard about the convent in Ireland that had all the bodies that were buried of the women who had been sent there for being prostitutes or being single and pregnant. It's a fantastic song, and I actually I have a friend who's no longer with us, but in the 50s she was pregnant and single, and she was sent away out of small town Minnesota, and just kind of excuses were made until she had the baby, gave it up for adoption, and then a few months later could, like as nothing happened. So kind of those topics, and it's appropriate to today as well, women's rights and everything that's in our universe. Did I answer the question? I'm sorry. Sometimes I just I'm trying to be in a small room so I can't float too far outside.
We are talking with Lori Dokken, whose theatrical hybrid musical event concert, Shout Sister Shout, will be at the Fireside Theater at Chanhassen Dinner Theaters on June 8th. That is I'm curious about the creation of this show in 2025 and how that would have been different, say, from 1995 or 1985. So I'm curious about where you're talking about speaking to things that are happening in the world. What did you find coming up for you as a writer and a performer and curator of this, conductor of this event, that you felt like, okay, this is a particular moment in history, and this is how I want to respond to it?
The first thing that struck me when you started with your question is that when things are really, oh my God, politically or socially, something that has always calmed me is to read more of history, and from maybe a few decades or maybe a few centuries ago. And you kind of can feel that revolution that keeps coming back to us. So I don't know that it would have been that different. The packaging and the music that would have been available would have been different. But I think we still are struggling with just seeing each other as human beings. And like Nina Simone, I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. That's from the 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
And it's great and totally appropriate today. So I guess that's how I would answer it. The questions are so similar. And, a few years ago, there was a nice exhale. We thought, oh, all right.
Yeah.
This is cool. And people are being seen, and there's more kindness and compassion going on. And then kind of like over the past few years going like, oh my God,
Yes, I have to fit in a break here, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No worries. We're going to have more with Lori Dokken after this quick break. Be sure to support the sponsors that you hear about in this break because they make conversations like these possible. Tell them you heard about them on The Gailey Show on AM 950 KTNF and WCPT 820. The Council on LGBTQIA2S+ Minnesotans is conducting a community needs survey. Data from the survey will be used to make recommendations to improve LGBTQ people's health and well-being in Minnesota. The May 31st deadline has been extended through June. So as we celebrate Pride Month, make sure you take advantage of this extraordinary opportunity to tell our stories. The survey is confidential, and you can fill it out online at mnqt.info/survey.
Peace of mind shouldn't cost a fortune. We keep things simple at Schroman Law because we believe planning for your estate and end-of-life care shouldn't be stressful or expensive. Every client relationship starts with a free consultation so clients have the information they need before making important decisions. From there, we work closely with clients to ensure they are choosing the most efficient and cost-effective plans for their specific needs. Schedule a free consultation today at schromenlaw.com. That's SCHROMEN law.com.
Greg Bakken here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com.
One of the best things about living in Golden Valley, they proudly support their LGBTQIA plus community. In fact, Golden Valley has more LGBTQIA plus households per capita than any city in Minnesota. And they hosted the first Suburban Pride Festival in the state. Join us for the 7th Annual Golden Valley Pride Festival on Saturday, June 7th from noon until 6 p.m. at Brookview Park. That's 200 Brookview Parkway in Golden Valley. This free, family-friendly festival honors our LGBTQIA plus neighbors, friends, and allies and celebrates the vibrant diversity that makes our community shine. Enjoy live entertainment on 2 stages, food trucks, kids' activities, a beer, wine, and cider tent, and over 100 local vendors and community booths. Come find AM 950's booth on the south side of the park and say hi. The Illegal Trans Woman with Ellie Krug, The Gailey Show, and The Downright Upright Show with Philip Anthony will be broadcasting live from the park in the afternoon. Follow Golden Valley Pride Festival on Facebook, Instagram, and at goldenvalleypride.com. That's goldenvalleypride.com.
Meet Jordan Berman, a charming single gay man in New York City who would love to be in love if only Mr. Right would swipe right. Between singles night happy hours and bachelorette blowouts, Jordan watches his girlfriends get engaged one by one, asking, what's next for him? Dive into the highs and lows of modern love and Significant Other, opening May 30th at the Main Street Stage in Anoka. Tickets start at $43. Visit lyricarts.org. Lyric Arts, theater with character. Welcome back to the Daily Show. We're coming up on the top of the hour. I'm your host, John Parker. Jim Pounds, executive producer, with me here in the studio. The Fireside Theater concert, Shout Sister Shout, presented by Lori Dawkin, is June 8th at Chanhassen Dinner Theaters. You can find your tickets at chanhassendt.com. Lori is here with us today talking about it. One question I would be remiss not to ask you, and I'm saving time specifically for this, Lori, is, and I wore this shirt.
Look at the shirt he's got on.
You were on stage with B. Arthur. You shared a stage with B.
I was actually, we became friends. I mean, not close, but I did have wonderful opportunities to stay with her about, I think it was 3-4 different trips out to LA. And yeah, cute stories. The last time I was there, this is like, it was in the late 90s, 2000s. I forget when she was at the Guthrie. She did her show there. We saw her then. We also had dinner. So kind of that time. So the last time I stayed with her, on the last day, she came over and there's a separate building on her property, like office and like bedroom and place to stay. And I hear a knock on the door, and she is. I open it. And she's standing with an armful of clothes, and she said, "You need to wear more color." And so she, and we're about the same size. As she'd gone through her closet and had brought things over, so
wow,
she gave me a bunch of clothes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, folks who are listening, they're like, what shirt is he wearing? It is my Golden Girls t-shirt.
See, I see it now. I do.
And
I know. You know, lucky me. I really have had 10 great lifetimes. And yeah, I'm very grateful. So
B wasn't part of the community, was she? No, I don't think so.
No.
Just an icon.
Right. She's an icon.
And an icon, really a category unto herself. Yes. You know, she was one of the first women in the Marines in World War II. She was really whatever. Joni Mitchell's a lot the same way. She did the kind of music she wanted to do. She didn't listen to this. And that was really like Bees. I mean, and I've thought of it many times in hindsight, that to take like a wishy-washy, afraid to say anything that might hurt anybody's feelings, Scandinavian from the Midwest girl, and like cook her bacon and eggs for breakfast, and she's like, you can't be wishy-washy. You couldn't be wishy-washy with her. And so I was like, oh God, don't say that. But one of the just kind. And when like the second time I was at her house, she knew I liked beer. So I opened the fridge and she had bought a 6-pack of cans of beer for me. And yeah, she was a great cook. She made rack of lamb that time. And
oh, wow.
So,
wow.
Lucky me.
That's
wow.
amazing.
Lucky you.
I'm glad to ask this question.
Yeah, it came out of I did a lot of HIV and AIDS fundraisers in the 90s. Like Sandy Dunk was here, Lucy Arnaz, and Bee had come, and Bee and Sandy got to know each other. And so Sandy set up a show for me in LA because she's like, we need to get you out there. And so Dan Chenard and Judy Bernard and I went out, and Sandy had to be out of town. So that's how Bee and I got to be better friends, because the phone rang one day and she said, this is Bee. And Sandy, you can't stay with her. She's out of town. So you're going to stay with me, and I have more bathrooms anyway. So it was great. So they were kind of believing in me and supporting me a few times during that decade. And yeah, it was great.
That's great.
I love that story.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, you've also have so many gay queer icons that you're having their music performed within the show. I mean, I'm looking at here, like Nina Simone, Aretha Franklin, obviously Lady Gaga, Bonnie Raitt, Joni Mitchell. I mean, obviously these folks aren't queer per se, I mean, except for Gaga, but I also would be remiss on the Daily Show not to ask, like, how did you see like LGBTQ themes weaving into the show, like how you wanted to represent that community?
I kind of think in a few different ways to represent people that are allies and very supportive, and that address subjects that we kind of all are fighting for. And then also to have people that are out front and doing stuff. I mean, look at Brandi Carlile hangs out with Joni Mitchell. So to just bring a nice combination of all different types of artists. And one word I wrote down during the 3-minute commercial break was variety. Folks love tribute shows, and they're great. And like they have albums now, people will play the whole album. And I think a great thing about this show, it's such a great variety. I can't say the word great anymore because I'm nauseating myself. It's a variety of subjects. It's a variety of kinds of writers that are being spoken. It's a variety of styles and voices and different artists in the community. So it kind of gives a picture on something you might not have heard before, a style or a tune, and you can investigate it further after the show.
That's great.
So,
it's a primer on all that. That's fantastic.
Yes. You know, can I do one quick thing?
Yeah.
You were talking about all the
About a
different
minute.
artists. Okay, this is great because I've always wanted to be a speed reader, like on the radio or in a commercial. So I wrote down all of the artists, the musical artists we're featuring. So here I go. You ready?
Okay.
Yes.
Sister Rosetta, Nina Simone, Carole King, Laura Nero, Phoebe Snow, Billie Holiday, Joni Mitchell, Bonnie Raitt, Laura McKenna, Olita Adams, Brandi Carlile, Karen Carpenter, Joanne Parker, Janice Ian, Dolly Linda, Emmy Lou, Andrew Day, Lady Gaga, Alicia Keys, and Bette Midler.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
You win.
Lori Doc.
Lori Doc.
From the present, so Lori Dokken is presenting Shout Sister Shout at Chanhassen Dinner Theaters this upcoming Sunday, June 8th. You can get your tickets at chanhassendt.com. Lori, this is the first time that we're talking. I am totally digging it, so you're going to have to come back to the show. We'll chat more about the work that you're doing, and just,
You bet.
Take any more Beatrice Arthur stories that you have. But folks, that is all our time for today. Thank you for listening and or watching.
Thank you.
In Minneapolis, the Matt McNeil Show is up next. In Chicago, it's Chew's Views with Richard Chew. If you're in Minnesota, stay tuned after that for Native Roots Radio. Stream our show everywhere that you get your podcasts, or on YouTube, youtube.com/@thegailyshow. Connect with us on Blue Sky. We're at thegailyshow.org on Blue Sky. And until tomorrow, keep it queer, America.
Keep it queer.